Welcome to this cinematic explainer of the Hellfire Club campaign. We are jumping right into the action today. We're going to break down the very first session of this epic Dungeons & Dragons adventure, kicking things off with the irresistible lure of a dangerous, uncharted dungeon and, the promise of ancient, life-changing rewards. If you love deep dives into TTRPG campaigns where literally every roll of the dice can mean life or death, well, you are absolutely in the right place. And man, what an incredible hook we have to start with here. The scene opens up in the craggy, forested country of Greyhawkins, right before the gaping maw of a howling stone face known as the Dungeon of Shadows. Our heroes are greeted by a voice echoing with ancient bargains. It belongs to Flizzlebin, the illustrious vagabond and emissary of evasion. This elusive gnome issued a summons our party simply couldn't ignore, offering a trial of worthiness and magical rewards that would completely transform their destitute fortunes. So let's meet the destitute party. Who exactly is brave enough to leave the sunlit road and descend down those rough-hewn stairs into the torchlit gloom?
Well, we're dealing with an incredibly quirky roster here. This isn't your standard group of shining heroes, right? This is a genuinely destitute party. First up, we've got Sir Pete Nut, a halfling paladin and kind of the squirrel-like heart of the group, hailing from a nut dynasty that is currently, starved of resources. Then there's Captain Clutch, a dwarf cleric repping the heavy metal Church of Warology. Backing them up is Ashton, a human wizard and massive nerd scholar trying to fund a cure for her infected hometown. And finally, we have Zynabob, an elf rogue who's a featherless outcast, basically searching the world for feathers to replace the ones burnt from her parents. So high stakes, deep backstories, and absolutely empty pockets.
Which brings us to Scene 1, the Altar of Yeenoghu. Our party decides to totally reject caution and kicks down the very first door, immediately sending the tension through the roof.
Suddenly, they're face-to-face with bipedal hyonoid warriors, just feral scavengers chanting maniacally for bloodshed. And the really crucial point here is how brutally this fight begins. 2. That terrifyingly low number is the exact amount of hit points Sir Pete Nut is left with after the hyonoids strike with savage precision. Captain Clutch isn't doing much better either, barely standing at 6 HP after eating some massive critical strikes. Honestly, let me just ask you, the gamers watching this, how would you handle this? You kick down the very first door of the entire campaign, and you're immediately staring down an imminent total party kill. Do you run? Do you just swing wildly and pray?
Well, our party chose peanut butter diplomacy. And this right here perfectly illustrates the magic of tabletop RPGs. Instead of just rolling attacks until they inevitably died, the group executes this incredible deadpan pivot from near-death fantasy combat to a high-stakes diplomatic pitch spearheaded by none other than Sir Pete Nut. Yep, you heard that right. The Peanut Butter Empire. Sir Pete Nut rushes to the front line, but not with his weapon drawn. Leveraging his kingdom's legacy, he actually offers these feral, bloodthirsty hyonoids a future. Not a future of rot and damp corridors, but one of trade and prosperity within a burgeoning peanut butter empire. I mean, it's a completely absurd but brilliant tactic. In this improbable triumph of charisma over carnage, he somehow successfully convinces the hyonoids to abandon their post at the altar and go hunt the goblins residing in the neighboring rooms instead. So, with the hyonoids literally marching off to fight goblins, a stunned silence falls over the chamber. They actually survived. And in the ensuing quiet of this crazy diplomatic victory, Captain Clutch steps up to the stone altar and claims a weapon left behind, a +1 divine flail. His dwarven authority just radiates with the weight of this dark divine aura imbued in the weapon. A massive, massive win for the Church of Warology. But, the Dungeon of Shadows doesn't let you rest for long. Let's move on to Scene 2, the Crystal Spider's Web. The party ventures deeper into the royal chamber, which is this place of decayed majesty, draped in thick, highly flammable cobwebs hanging like funeral shrouds. And right at the room's heart, on a pedestal, sits a shivering crystal spider, 5 feet across, with a greatsword made of living flame visibly trapped inside its translucent shell. The party knows they can't just walk up to it, so let's break down this cinematic combat sequence. Step 1 is a calculated sanitization by fire. Sir Pete Nut tips a javelin with fire and hurls it straight into the gloom. Boom, a decade of webbing ignites instantly. It clears the environmental hazards, but, of course, triggers the spider's terrifying descent from the ceiling. That leads to Step 2, cracking the crystal shell with magic. And finally, Step 3, a brutal, close-quarters execution. Let's look a little closer at that second step. As the crystal spider drops, just a whirlwind of sticky silk and multifaceted legs, Zaina Bob bravely takes the brunt of the assault. She ends up restrained in the webs, but her struggle distracts the beast perfectly. This opening allows Ashton, our noble scholar wizard, to step right up. She unleashes 3 glowing darts of magical force. Bam, bam, bam. 10 force damage slams simultaneously into the creature, audibly cracking its crystalline defenses.
And that perfectly sets up the execution. This cinematic finale entirely belongs to Captain Clutch. With the spider distracted by Zaina and cracked open by Ashton, Clutch steps up and swings his newly acquired divine flail in a massive, crushing arc. He shatters the spider's skull completely. A spectacular spray of dark, silvery black ichor coats the ancient ruins. The guardian of the royal chamber is officially down.
Okay, so it's time to check out the spoils of survival. We started with a destitute party, remember? Let's see the tangible rewards they pulled from the crystalline wreckage.
Let's break down exactly what they found here. First, pulled right from the spider's remains, is the Flame-Tongue Greatsword. This thing is amazing. It hums with predatory heat, deals an extra 2d6 fire damage, and has the Graze Mastery, meaning even missed attacks deal damage equal to the wielder's strength modifier. Then we have Clutch's +1 Divine Flail, an absolutely serious upgrade for the front line. And crucially, at the bottom, 30 gold pieces, recovered from the Emerald Remnants. For a poor party, this is huge. And notice the exact split. 8 gold to Zaina and Ashton, and 7 each to Pete and Clutch. Literally every single coin matters for this group's survival.
So the party is healed up, looted up, and feeling pretty confident. But actions have consequences, which brings us to the next move. By removing the flame tongue and defeating the spider, they've created a massive power vacuum in the dungeon.
The Dungeon of Shadows is actively reacting to their presence, and we now face 2 escalating paired threats. In the left-hand chambers, we have smoke rising as the Hyenoids hold up their end of the bargain, actively hunting and clearing out the minor goblin threats. But because those minor threats are being flushed out, something much worse is waking up. From the unknown depths, a monstrous echoing roar continues to resonate, vibrating right through the stone walls. The trial of Flizzlebin is dramatically ramping up.
Which brings us to the end of Session 1 and leaves us with a massive, dramatic question. Follow the smoke or face the roar? Do our heroes chase the Hyenoids into the goblin smoke, or do they turn their new Flame-Tongue Greatsword toward the unknown horror making that thunderous noise? It's a brilliant cliffhanger that completely flips the power dynamic of the campaign. What would you do with your newly upgraded party? Let that sink in and get ready, because you definitely won't want to miss how the Hellfire Club handles this in Session 2.